After Hours. I wanted to start off by addressing some of the responses we got and weighed in with Wade after the last time that we were together talking about stuff. So we asked Wade 2 questions. The first one, which was, why is it that we have all of these sporty boats now, and some of them have 2 hard points in the back, which is, I don't like it, and some of them have a full complement of 3. And basically there isn't a good answer for it. It should be done the right way. Safety first. That was his opinion. I completely agree. The second question we had was, what is it about a flat stern like this that makes a boat seems easier for you to paddle at higher speeds? Is that something that they were looking at when they were making the Phantom? What's the advantage? And what Wade had to say was actually when they were making at least the Phantom, they figured out that it was an effective way to do what Pat Keller was trying to do with those turbo booster pockets in the back of a Delta V. What they found was that the more volume they could put back here, the bigger kind of snow shovel they could mount on the back, the more pressure is pushed on the back of a boat as it's leaving a drop, and the more you get that launch coming out of the hole. So thanks everybody that talked to us, and Rob Rexroad, this one's for you. Hey guys, welcome to After Hours 3. After our last conversations, Rob Rexroad, who is the Northeast Confluence, so for you Whitewater guys, Dagger rep, reached out to us and said, you didn't recommend any of the new boats that people who are just getting into the sport might be looking at. And we decided he had a great point. So we pulled out 3 boats that are our go-tos for first-time paddlers. The Mamba, the Burn, and the Remix. And we're going to talk about those. And then we're going to talk about kind of why we choose these over maybe a higher performance boat, and when it's time to step up into the big leagues. So let's start with diversify your portfolio. So the boat right in front of us, this is the Pyranha Burn. What's your fondest memory from a burn?
Oh no, but fondest memory to burn. Oh, it's a bad story. It's a bad story. We had a burn paddling with Chris Moe. I was kind enough to drive it back to Old Forge, and somewhere in between the Bottom Moose and Old Forge, that burn disappeared.
And then last year, 4 years later, I found it in the back of one of the sketchiest properties, guarded by shotgun.
Weren't able to recover it.
Which is the second time a shotgun has gotten between Chris Morelli and me and the kayak.
But a fondest memory. I just remember some good bottom moose laps in this boat. I mean, if you're looking for a good, stable, reliable, river running / creek boat, the Burn is it. And I bring up the term river runner if you don't mind me intervening.
I feel like we're doing that. We should show the bottom.
Yeah, let's show the bottom. River runners, to me, and again, I'm Will Crimmins. I'm with Mountain Man Outdoor Supply Company. I annually oversee the sale of about 2,300 canoes, kayaks, paddleboards, over 100 whitewater boats, approaching 200 this next year. Of those sales, we have a different variety, and I like to put it on a spectrum. On one end of the spectrum, you have your playboat, which is a small, low volume, typically a flat bottom kayak made to sit and surf on waves. Some of us, like Alex here, don't necessarily sit, but do aerial moves and different tricks. And then on the other end of that spectrum, you have what I call a creek boat. The industry knows as a creek boat, which is a higher volume, made to resurface off of big drops. If you look at it from a side profile, you'll notice a lot of rocker. That rocker, think of the bottom of a rocking chair or a banana. Very curved so that high volume boat, which has a lot more material, is easier to maneuver and steer downstream.
Right, so basically the point here to here,
exactly,
the boat curves up.
Exactly, right. And then and so on in the back too. The rocker can be in the stern of the boat, and then in the middle of that spectrum you have your river runner. And that is basically, if you were to go to an intro to whitewater kayaking class, you're mainly going to see river running boats. And then they have hybrids, river running creek boats and river running play boats. My first boat was the Dagger G Ride, if any of you remember that boat. And that's what I would term a river running play boat. It wasn't a straight up play boat. It had a little bit more volume for running rivers, but it had a flatter hull for sitting surfing on those waves. Whereas if you take a right or come towards the creek end of the spectrum, you get your river running creek boat, and that's what we have here. Something with more volume, and for a beginner that equates to stability, which equates to confidence.
Yeah, and one other thing that you're usually going to find on these is, or that we look for with our top tier beginner boats, is something that you're not going to grow out of, something that you're going to be able to use until you destroy it, and that takes a while, A. And at B, by the time that you destroy it, you're ready to step up with, a full bore, like either a hardcore creek boat or if you have a need for speed, a race boat. But we want to get, the right beginner boat. It's like the first car, right? Like it's something that it's not going to die immediately. It's not too much for you.
It's going to build that confidence.
It's going to build confidence.
Right? It's going to build confidence.
So the other thing that is usually featured on your first, a solid choice for a first boat is right where my fingers are. You have strong chines, which allows you to quickly dig in and go, and gives you more control and a little more being able to dig in further without tipping the boat on edge as far.
Think of the edge of a snowboard. You carve that edge in, that board turns. You get response out.
Exactly. And the Burn is, of the boats we picked, it has the most chine, the hardest edges on it, which is really good for getting your first class 2-3 down, because you hit that edge and you can go. But you'll start to wear these off, let's just say, when you go creeking.
Yeah, because that point here, that's going to experience a good bit of wear.
Right.
As well as the hull. But because of that edge, you're going to see wear.
Right. And the trend line is going to be, if that's where you're going, the next boat you're going to have is going to be more rounded. Because you're probably going to go for a full-on creeker. The Burn, it's kind of settled into the background now, but it was the go-to boat for intermediates and beginners for the longest time, like 2008 until 15.
And you mentioned it a second ago. These boats, how many demshits do you see paddling this boat?
That's what I was going to say. My favorite memory of the Burn is seeing Jared Seiler in it for like 6 years. Yeah. Freewheeling and like all the demshits boys just going nuts.
These boats, the Remix, the Burn, the Mamba, you don't have to be a beginner. You don't have to be an expert. We mentioned a quiver a minute ago. Mm-hmm. This is, if you were to just have one boat, I have to argue that a river running creek boat is probably going to be, if I could just own one boat.
Right, and then
it's going to be that category.
Yeah, my goal is always to put you into the boat that's going to allow you to, you're never going to outgrow it, but you'll be able from there to get more specific.
Take it to the next level.
Yeah. And I want you to have, no matter what it is, if it's a paddle, if it's PFD, it's a helmet, if it's a boat, I want you to have it and wear it out. I don't want it to be something you outgrow immediately. But like I said, departing the Burn, it's I think the lightest of these boats. Sizing wise, it goes the smallest.
4 different sizes.
4 sizes.
Medium, large, and extra large. So you got a variety. You got choices.
Yep. And it has the most edge, so it's a really solid contender for people who are kind of more nervous and more timid on putting edge down. And it's a solid choice for creeking, no doubt. Watch a Demshits video, but also definitely for river running. Big water, you can really move around in this.
And you can still surf this. You can still surf this whole rivers. How in water time you are.
Yeah, I mean...
Now, it wouldn't be the boat you take there, but because of that harder chine, that flatter hull...
There's a reason I don't fix my car with a Swiss Army knife. Behind us, though, this is the Mamba.
Or also known as the Mamba.
Dagger Mamba. So the Dagger Mamba has the awesome Dagger outfitting.
Contour ergo outfitting with the thigh lift, seat adjustments, ratchet straps. Actually, both boats have ratchet straps.
Yeah, this is 3. This boat is a little higher volume. And definitely, to me, it paddles like it has more volume as well. It seems to ride a lot higher.
Let's look at the chine.
Yep. You can see the chine is a little bit softer. It still has that hard edge, but I can't cut butter with it like I can with the Burn. And then also the rocker profile, you can see everything in here is much smoother. And the way that I see this boat is that it's still an amazing big water river runner. Everyone I know in the Ottawa jokes about how when it gets really big up there, the Mambas start coming out, and there's a really good reason for that. But if you look, there's a hard edge going end to end, front to back, on the waterline, or below the waterline of the Burn. The Mamba starts rounding that out, which is kind of a really Dagger trait. And that definitely helps it just depart rocks, just slide off of rocks. Good point. The one thing that both of these boats, the one issue that both of these boats have, and the Burn, the old Burns, this is the second, this is the third Burn, and this is the third version of the Burn, this is the third version of the Mamba. The older Burns, if you're looking at one of those, I would actually stay away from, because the bow volume would go much lower and before it came up. By the way, this is the XL and the 8.86. So they had this scoop right here, and they would just nosedive when you hit a big hole. So they were just submarines.
Caught a lot of water.
Yeah, and you'll notice the Mambas has a much higher deck that helps it stay significantly drier. But they're both excellent choices in my mind for that person who they want to do whitewater, but they don't see themselves doing waterfalls with any regularity. I never thought I would do a waterfall in my life. I started as a playboater. Now I do 80% of my time on waterfalls. Just don't close that door. There's just no reason to,
You like to fly.
Yeah, you never know where life will take you.
So these two boats are river runners, more apt to creeking. Again, running towards the creek end. River and creek boats, as I term them. Let's move this Burn here real quick and pull the remix up. Unless you have anything more to go over with these two boats.
No, I don't. Just because they're all so good at what they do. So this is the little remix, right?
This is the big remix. So we've got 3 big boats here. These are the largest in their class. This is the Remix 79 from Liquidlogic. The way, having paddled this boat personally myself, and again, circling back around to having a variety of boats, or a quiver of boats, I use this boat for an entire season or two as my go-to boat.
The Red Rocket.
The Red
Rocket.
Rocket.
Used to call it.
Chris Pegg, Eric Adson. Thanks for giving it some love as well. But I like this boat because, and I would say it stands out a little differently than the other two in the fact that because these boats, the Burn and the Mamba, have a little bit more rocker, I think they're a little bit more creek-oriented, in my opinion.
They totally are.
Where this boat, instead of being more creek-oriented, has a little bit more speed.
Yes. It's certainly in the same way that the Burn's been taken everywhere by the Pro Team, at the exact same time that was running around, being taken around by Demschitz, this was being run around, taken all over the world by Bombflow. And anything that you can imagine being run, a pro boater has run it in all of these boats. The Mamba had its point in time a couple years later. The one really I really think of this boat as just being a big water king, just because the bow is designed to stay so dry. You have all of this volume right behind here, so it's hard for the water to load your stern and pitch you up.
Well, you got this little scoop right here, this little circle in the back, which is going to help your land and lead as well.
It does.
Drop down, water falls on that, and you're out.
And the Liquidlogic outfitting, by the way, is
known as the badass
outfitting.
Is just that. Very hydrophobic, meaning water's going to fall through it, dries pretty quickly. With the right amount of foam, you can dial this in to be as comfortable as a lazy boy.
Yeah, definitely pretty close. Pretty close.
Again, our bodies are all different. That's why here at Mountain Man we offer these different varieties. The Pyranha seat, some love it. The Dagger seat, some love it. The Liquidlogic seat, some love it. So we all have different bodies. We're going to offer different things. It's just like different cars. There's a whole bunch of different cars in the market. There's not one that's the best. There's a lot of good options out there that might be best for you.
Right. So if we go back to the chines on this, you'll notice this is totally rounded off. There's a very slight plane. It's like as wide as my fingers right there, where there's an edge to it, or there's a diagonal that connects this angle to the rounded bottom. Yeah, it makes the transition. And that's basically what's giving you. I remember these boats as having a really carby and flowy feel. Like you could just ride this edge, you know. And I remember when you were paddling this was around the period of time when you were trying to figure out how to paddle rapids with like 2 strokes, right? Like the idea of it, like that you can like take 1 stroke and then like edge the boat in and take another stroke and like it was just eddy in 1 stroke, eddy out 1 stroke. I just remember this as being like a super flowy boat in creeks. The tail is kind of a limiting factor for its hardcore creakability, but it's super capable.
The difference between that edge that Alex was just showing you is what we call a softer chine. So what that's going to equate to compared to the Mamba or the Burn is the Mamba and the Burn with that harder chine are going to have more what we call initial stability. When you sit in that boat and you move your hips, you're going to feel more stable. In the Remix, you're going to have more secondary stability. Still a very stable boat, but initially, when you move those hips, that initial stability, you're going to feel like you can move them a little bit more. It's going to feel a little bit sportier. But when you lean that boat, the secondary stability kicks into play. Whereas when you lean the Mamba and the Burn, and you lean it too much, there's not as much secondary stability. So just as stable, but just a different feel in the water.
Absolutely. Anything else on the Remix? The Remix also comes in a scaled down version for kids. I think it's 45 now.
So there's 4 sizes in the Remix: 79, 69, 59, and then 47. 47. So for you youngsters out there, or any of your dads or moms that are looking to get your young one in a 47, my son is 7 years old, and the 47 was just a little too big for a 7-year-old at about 50, 60 pounds. But he's close, real close. So, got started young.
He weighs 50 pounds.
Yeah.
That's why I'm back this morning.
So that's the Remix.
And then the other thing I think we should mention in terms of sizing and stuff, this does not equate to the Remix XPs. They're not the same thing.
Good that you mentioned that.
The Remix XPs come in like 9 to 10 feet. They have a skeg on them, hatches. They're a Grand Canyon overnighter.
XP being a crossover boat. So they have that skeg for flat water, and you can bring that skeg up or leave the skeg down if you're Will Crimmins and a number of others that paddle the Grand Canyon. But those boats are a river running boat. However, much more voluminous, skeg, hatches, adjustable foot braces, foot pegs. 2 tours down the Grand Canyon, 225 miles each trip. 11, 12 days on the canyon each trip, 225 miles, and everything I needed. Food, clothing, shelter, everything could fit in that XP9, XP10. However, if you're going to be paddling whitewater the large majority of the time, those boats are going to be like driving a bus down a rapid.
beast, like a Greyhound bus.
Whereas these boats are going to be much easier to maneuver, easier to learn how to roll, etc. Crossover boats, don't get me wrong, crossover boats might work well for some that are getting into whitewater if they're going to be paddling whitewater, let's say 50% of the time, and flat water 50% of the time. But if you're primarily looking to get into whitewater paddling, you want to think about one of these boats, which are, again, river runners. Another boat that we didn't bring in that would fit right in this category is the Jackson Zen. A lot of instructional programs use these boats as well as the Zen. The Jackson boats all have that super easy to adjust foot brace, so getting different paddlers in and out of that boat and adjusting that foot brace is made really easy. The Zen falls right in line, and I put it closer to the Remix here than I would put it closer. I put it further from the Mamba and the Burn. I feel like the profile, when you look at the two boats side by side, they look a lot more similar. I paddled both the Zen, both the Remix. Very similar boats, great boats, confidence builders, stable, fast, and yet still nimble.
It's the closest thing to paddling a surfboard I've ever found, or a snowboard down there I've ever found. And we discussed bringing it in. The reason we didn't is because it's mid-January 2019. They're prototyping that'll be the third iteration of the Zen in Tennessee right now. We're pumped. We're excited to see what it's going to be. We're hoping it'll keep with the namesake, beginner friendly, river runner, creek capable, quick. But we just don't know, and it just didn't make sense to clean it off because it's freezing outside and we're gonna snow on it. Let's grab that Nirvana though, which is another Jackson boat. It's very similar. Just dump it right here. Okay, it's showing up.
Got it?
Yeah, bud.
And the Nirvana.
So, we had a slightly heated discussion off camera about why you would bring the Nirvana in, and what I wanted to talk about with this was the tendency for beginners to get drawn into whatever the newest boat is on the market. We specifically picked the previous three boats because we think they're the best for the people that we're hoping to reach right now.
Those folks that are looking to get into whitewater or need a confidence building boat.
Right, and are just trying to build from the basics, and we're trying to help them understand what they should be looking for in a boat. Understand that at any given point in time, the social media, web presence of a company is going to be whatever is newest out there for all of the obvious reasons. And they're going to put their pro guys in whatever's newest to try and help them move it. It doesn't mean that it's the best boat or the worst boat or the most beginner friendly or the least beginner friendly. It just means it's what's new. And right now, what's new and hot and really popular are these 9-foot racing class boats.
Which is the Dagger Phantom, the Pyranha 9R, and soon this spring the 9R2, and then what we have here, the beautiful Jackson Nirvana.
Right.
And this is the large.
Right. Again, all the largest boats happen to be what we grabbed today. This boat, if we can flip it over, you'll see this takes that super hard chine thing to the upteenth level, and it has a really square stern on the back. The thing I will say for a lot of these racing boats that have come out in 2018, 2017, is that these square sterns seem to have like a drag on the back. So especially the medium Nirvana, it really just, they are super intuitive and they do drive like pickup trucks. The Phantom's the same way, where because the stern drags, if you point the nose at something, you know where you're going. Whereas a lot of beginner kayakers, experienced kayakers who are trying to go really fast, find that the stern starts kind of sneaking away out from behind them, and it feels like you're going down a hill on your bike and hit the back brake on gravel, right? Back slides out from around you. You just don't, the racing boats are designed to not do that, which is a big pro if you're trying to learn how to boat. But at the same time, neither of us feel like there's any reason when you're already trying to learn what the right thing is to do in a situation to decrease your response time.
I mean, you can buy. I look at myself right now, it's skiing season. And if I was getting into skiing, being in this industry and selling products, I know that you get what you pay for. However, buying the best pair, most expensive pairs of skis is probably not going to work too well for me because I'm not a bad skier. I've been skiing for many years. It's not going to work so well for me because I'm not using it as much. I'm skiing local mountains here. I'm not going out to the Alps. I'm not going to Colorado as often, or Utah, or the Pacific Northwest as often as I'd like. So I don't need the lightest weight, most expensive pair of skis for me. When it comes to boats like this, price-wise, they're all relatively the same. But this is what I would term more niche. This boat was built to be fast, resurface, have a lot of volume. And for somebody getting into the sport, this boat will be all those things. But because it's more volume, it's going to be a little bit more boat to learn how to maneuver. That's what it comes down to for me. Is these other boats are more maneuverable. They're still stable. There is still plenty of volume. But this style, the 9R, the Phantom, and the Nirvana, are just a little bit more boat than most folks getting into the sport need. And again, I bring up the ski situation because there's a lot of folks out there that might think, oh, well, you know what? I'm just going to buy the best right out of the gate. You really run the risk of buying something you're not going to enjoy because you can't maneuver it as well, or it's not what you're looking for. So you run the risk of ruining your experience on the water, as opposed to buying something that may not be the biggest, fastest thing, but something that will be, again, more confidence building.
It reminds me of that viral video of the 16-year-old kid who's never been in a car before, jumps in his dad's Mustang in the driveway and drives it through the living room.
Oh.
Like, it's basically the same thing to me.
That's a good correlation.
But yeah, dude, other than that, reach out to us, mountainmanoutdoors.com. Comment on this on YouTube or wherever you're finding it on Facebook. Get a hold of us, and we're always here to answer your questions. Thanks again, Rob, for giving us an idea for this episode.
Thanks, guys.